Bože me sačuvaj. Ne bi imao dijete, pa ni za šta na svijetu. Šta je smiješno? Šta treba, da ga maltretira neka budala, jel? Da ode u rat. Da dobije rak. Da ga ubije neki idiot na ulici. Se zlopati cijelog života, zaradi nešto i da ostane bez iđe ikoga ičega. I sve to da bi na kraju umro.
For those who don't know, antinatalism is the philosophical position that having children is not morally good for a number of reasons. For example, we know through observation and experience that suffering is guaranteed in life. We suffer thirst, hunger, boredom, and in other ways to varying degrees, some more, some less. But we cannot guarantee our children a good life with a more favorable balance of suffering and pleasure or joy. Secondly, we cannot ask our children for their permission to be born. If we put some person who is already alive into a situation where there is serious risk of harm without their consent, that would be immoral, possibly illegal, and they surely wouldn't appreciate it, especially if there is no good reason to do so. This logic applies to our hypothetical children too. As far as we know, they do not yet exist, and thus they do not experience suffering and are at no risk of harm. But by bringing them into this world, we expose them to suffering and the risk of harm. Thirdly, not only do we risk harm to our children by bringing them into this world, but they will likely also cause harm to others as long as they live. Just as suffering is inevitable for us to experience, it is also inevitable for us to cause it to others, whether that be humans or non-human animals. In order to survive and ensure our own well-being, we have to take resources from others or deprive others of necessary resources, which often involves causing harm. Even vegans have to cut down forests and displace wild animals to plant their crops, and then exterminate these so-called pests to protect their crops. That's not to mention using industrial agriculture and the harm that it does to the environment. For these reasons, I would consider myself an antinatalist and will not personally be having any children of my own. I think antinatalism should become some form of social movement, basically to connect like-minded individuals and form communities. This might help people with this philosophical position to cope with life, because it is not popular in mainstream society and will likely never be. That said, I don't think antinatalism will succeed as a political movement or accomplish any meaningful goals such as ending all human procreation. Reproduction is the most natural thing for a living organism to do, and trying to stop it entirely is futile. Organisms on Earth have survived ice ages, global warming, asteroid impacts, and other catastrophes, enduring highly unfavorable living conditions. Yet life finds a way. It would be no different with widespread antinatalism. Also, just because something is natural doesn't mean it's good. Like disease is natural, yet it is not good. But let's say some group creates an antinatalist political party and it becomes popular and is adopted by every nation on Earth. This is already highly unlikely, but it's just a hypothetical scenario. Eventually, 99% of people on Earth become antinatalists and stop having children. Of the current global population, 1% is still around 80 million people. The antinatalists will select themselves out of the gene pool and die off within a few decades, and the remaining 1% can repopulate the Earth in some centuries. The whole project was largely a failure. However, let's say the antinatalist party creates a global totalitarian state that uses non-consensual means to stop human reproduction. There could still remain enough people capable of reproduction hidden away somewhere to restart the human experiment. But for the sake of argument, let's say they succeed in complete human sterilization. Humanity eventually dies off, but other species on Earth continue living, and chances are that another intelligent species will emerge after some millions of years. We're back at square one again. Basically, I think if humanity ever stops reproducing, it will happen naturally somehow, as with all other species that went extinct. For example, the human male sperm count has declined over 50% in the last 50 years or so, especially in Western countries, but it is happening globally. It's possible that most of the human male population will be infertile within the next 50 years. If industrial civilization collapses and modern technology goes along with it, then there might be no way to artificially keep reproduction going through, for example, sperm banks and in vitro fertilization. Collapse could happen due to ecological overshoot, climate change, and the depletion of cheap fossil fuel energy. So I don't think we need to take any extreme measures to hasten this along, as it would likely backfire and possibly make things worse for us and cause more suffering, as we have seen happen with political extremism before. For example, in the Middle Ages, there was a Gnostic Christian sect called the Cathars who practiced antinatalism, among other things. They were heavily persecuted by the Catholic Church for being heretics. If antinatalism were to become popular again and started to threaten the powers that be, what happened to the Cathars could happen to modern-day antinatalists as well. History tends to repeat itself, or at least rhyme. Remember to like and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts on antinatalism in the comments. See you in the next video. Okay, thanks, bye.